morning. Happy Wednesday. Stellar MLS class at 9. Become a hyper-local expert. So tomorrow you will be a hyper-local expert. Awesome. Good morning. How's everybody doing? And adjust some of the sound. All right. So we've been talking a lot. It's busy. It's crazy. Got a lot going on. Lots of business, lots of activity, lots of action. I just want to bring you some reminders of things that you have to do. You still have things going on in your life. We still have families. We still have kids. We still have spouses. We still have to keep our heads above water. No worries. So we still have to keep our heads above water. So I want to bring you some reminders. I'm gonna show you a quick video like I did last week, and it's just a reminder. It's called Live with Purpose. And for those of you who don't know, this is Inky Johnson, and I'll just give you a little backstory on him. Inky Johnson was a cornerback for the University of Tennessee in the late 90s, early 2000s. Projected top 30 first-round draft pick to go to the NFL. Amazing kid. Came from the streets of, I believe it was Atlanta, where literally his story, he says, grew up in a little town, little area called Kirkwood, drug dealer on every corner. Walking to school one morning, I walk out and I'm walking with my cousin, and we look across. A guy walks out of his apartment, sits down in his car, and just sits there. He looks up. It looks like he's praying. And 2 seconds later, another guy comes out from around the corner and shoots him and kills him. He goes, and not a person moved. That's the kind of town he grew up in. Not a person blinked an eye. Nobody picked up a phone, nothing. He goes, there's people everywhere. He goes, so he wanted to make a difference. He decided he's going to do something different. And he had this dedication in him from the time he was a little kid. His mom worked at Wendy's and would come and pick him up from football practice at 8 o'clock at night. And when she would pick him up, he'd run to the car and tell her, Mom, please turn the lights on the field so I can practice a little more. I have to bust my ass here because you are never going to work another day in your life once I get to the NFL. And she would turn the lights on and he would practice for another hour. That's the kind of dedication this guy has. Goes to University of Tennessee. Freshman year, blows it out of the water playing special teams. Sophomore year, blows it out of the water playing cornerback on defense, starting defensive player. Junior year, coach comes to him and says, Ink, got our second or third game of the season coming up. Just want to let you know you're projected top 30 NFL draft pick. You'll never have to work another day in your life. He walked out of the film room, calls his mom and says, Mom, you're never going to have to work another day in your life. We will never miss another meal ever again. He goes, I'm going to go to the NFL. Hangs up the phone, goes out and plays the next game against Air Force. Halfway through the game, Air Force is making a comeback. And he's a cornerback. He defends the wide receivers. He's running down the sidelines, and the Air Force he throws for a deep pass towards the touchdown. Inky comes in, boom, nails the guy, lays him out, stops him from scoring a touchdown. But as he did that, all the breath left his body, and he laid limp on the field. He ended up being paralyzed on the right side of his body, busted a subclavian artery, nearly died, rushed him to the hospital, had to pull the femoral artery, pull an artery in his leg, cut it, put it up here for the subclavian artery so he would actually still be alive. He's paralyzed on the right side of his body, never going to use that arm ever again. That's this guy's story. And now he decided that he was going to change his life. And he took the same dedication, will, and purpose and attitude that he put towards football. And he decided he was going to make a change. And now he puts it towards changing people's lives. But he's talking about live with purpose. And this is just a great message as a reminder, because life doesn't always go the way we want it to. And we need to be reminded of these things sometimes. So here's a great little video, and we'll talk a little bit after that. And then we'll jump into some coverage today.
I said, but I could use this arm every day for the rest of my life by the way that I live my life, because I would never let a circumstance or a situation define my life. Adversity is adversity. And the reason I love adversity is because you don't judge a person's character by where they stand when everything is all good. Everybody can stand up and do good when everything is all good. Everybody can smile when it's sunshine. Everybody can do right when everything is going right. Everybody can do that. But everybody can't face opposition, adversity, and challenges and say, I've been waiting on you to come. I'm going to embrace you, and I'm going to figure out a way to use you because you would never turn me into a different person. You would never make me a person that people don't recognize before the adversity. You ever seen a person that faced something and you don't even recognize them? Like the thing I've learned about life, like everybody is in different businesses, per se, but at the end of the day, we're all in the people's business. And what I mean by that is every day we have a chance to impact somebody's life, right? And I firmly believe with the things we're part of and the things we do, we all have to have a purpose that's a lot greater than ourselves. So when we hit things that we don't understand and that brings us a certain level of discomfort and that hurts us and we just can't pull the grips on it, when we have to encounter things like that, we have to step back and we have to figure out, how can I use it? And a lot of times as people, like naturally people are selfish, right? And what I mean by that is they approach situations and they say, what can I extract from this situation and how can it benefit me? But the moment an individual shifts their perspective and shift their mentality and shift their attitude from me to we, that is the moment an individual becomes literally dangerous. Because now an individual is attached to purpose and mission. And when you have an individual that's attached to purpose and mission, it's not too many things that's going to stop them. You see, my football career ended, but my reason for why I lived my life, it never did. I just had a paralyzed right arm and hand. My mentality wasn't paralyzed. My spirit wasn't paralyzed. My drive wasn't paralyzed. My dedication wasn't, my commitment wasn't, I was the same man. I just had an extra boost of energy for why I lived my life. I wear this as a badge of honor. Every single day, the adversity, the opposition that life sent to break me, I wear it as a badge of honor because I understand every day of my life, I represent something. It's just like every individual in this room, every company, every brand, when people see you, they think something. We've all seen those people, we see them coming, we're like, oh, here come this crybaby. No, they're whining about something. And then we've all seen those people where we say, man, where you been, brother? I've been needing to see you, man. How can we be those type of people in our companies and our families and the things that we're connected to? How can we be those people that's a breath of fresh air, man? How can we be those people that live life with passion and compassion? How can we be those people when we ask people questions, we don't just listen with the intent to reply, but we actually listen with the intent to understand? How can we be those people that understand everybody that comes across our path, they come across our path for a reason. And so when we approach them, we listen, and we share a little bit of love, and we want to leave them a little bit different. Like, I'll never forget, I talked to the guy that I encountered the hit with that left my arm like this, and that changed my life. I'll never forget, I talked to him. He called me, and he played for the University of Air Force, obviously, and he just so happened to be from Atlanta. And he calls me, and I picked up the phone. It was about a year and a half after my incident happened. I pick up the phone, this guy is crying his eyes out. And he says to me as he's crying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. He said, I didn't have a shot at the NFL. He said, you did. He said, I feel as if I messed your life up. And I said to him, thank you. He stopped crying. He said, what do you mean, thank you? I said, I'm saying thank you because if this incident didn't happen, who's to say that I would be the man that I now am? Who's to say that I would be the father that I now? Who's to say that I would have the perspective that I have? Not that my perspective was bad before. Adversity, it's all about perspective. It's never about what we go through. It's how we do what we go through. And when I told him thank you, the reason he didn't understand it, it's not so much about a story. Like, we all have stories. Like the ESPN producer told me, he came down to see me in Atlanta and they shot my little special, and he told me, I'm not coming just for the story. Everybody has a story. He said, I'm coming because I can't understand your perspective, and I can't understand how you can be thankful for something that brings a lot of people pain, and they just can't understand. I can't understand how you're thankful for something that a lot of people can't even process, and they will use it as an excuse. And I said, you probably can't understand it because you don't live life the way that I live it. Every single day I wake up, the only thing I need is a breath of fresh air. That's it. I don't need a reward. I don't need a product. And the only thing I need is breath in my body. And every single day I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna live life for the right reason, and I'm gonna live life for the right way. I'm gonna live life with passion, with love and compassion, because when I almost lost my life, that shade went up and it made me realize what life was really about. And at the end of the day, I think we all know it's not about anything superficial or materialistic. We've all experienced that. We've all got that new car, and 3 days later, it's just a new car. And then we've all done something for a family at Christmas. And why did it feel better when we did something for a family at Christmas than when we did something for ourselves? Because life is attached to growth. And life is attached to service. And what that service is serving something that serves a lot greater purpose than just ourselves.
So that's my reminder for you today. Just a thought to keep in mind that there's greater things in life, and it's better. We need to start looking and changing our perspective sometimes. So perspective can either be your power or your prison. And when you look at somebody like Inky Johnson and you see the history that he has and what he went through, his perspective could easily have been a prison for him and change his entire life. And he could have never been the man that he is today. There's another talk that he gives, and he talks about the other side. There's another side to everything that happens. There's another side to his story. And the other side to his story is he could have went and he could have said, oh, woe is me. This is the worst thing that could have happened. Be just so negative and so down. And so I mean, that's the other side. But it's also when something bad happens to you, you have to be able to look and see that there's another side to this bad thing happen to you. And can you find it? And this is not meant to downplay anything that happened, good, what was it now, 20 years ago on September 11th. But there's stories about the other side of people that were saved on that day, right? So there's a story of a guy who was waking up in the morning, and his wife says to him, hey, I really need you to help me today. Can you take our daughter to kindergarten today? And he said, I can't. I've got business. I've got meeting. I have to be in those buildings. I've got meetings all day. She said, really, I need your help today. I need you to take our daughter to school this morning. I need you to take her to kindergarten. He says, I can't. I'm just too busy. There's too much stuff going on. She said, one more time, I really need you to take our daughter to kindergarten today. And this one hits me. He stopped and he said, okay. And he went to take her to kindergarten. In the midst of taking her to school that morning, some things happened, times changed, and he couldn't make it to work. And he said, all right, that's it. I'll just call out the rest of the day. Honey, I'll be here to pick you up when school gets out. Saved his life. He's now there for his daughter and his family because there's another side to everything that happens. A guy driving to work that morning got stuck in traffic on the New Jersey Turnpike. He's cussing his head off, going crazy. He's all so pissed off because he's late and he's going to lose his job. Saved his life. Another guy going into work stops and goes to get donuts. So as he's walking out the door, he's got a box of donuts for people in the office. Somebody bumps into him, spills coffee all over his shirt. Saved his life. Another guy just bought a brand new pair of shoes the day before, and he wore them that morning thinking he's looking all fresh and fine. He's walking, got a blister on his shoe, decided he's going to turn around and go back, and it saved his life. The other side. So everything that happens to you today, whether you lose that deal, somebody cuts you off, you're 20 minutes late, you get somebody calls and says, I'm going with another agent. There's another side. There's a reason, there's a purpose, there's a meaning for everything that's happening to you. You have to be challenge yourself enough to find the better perspective, the other side of these things. There's more to it than what's happening. You have to change your perspective. You have to be willing to see the greater good and the greater side of everything and ask, all right, life, what are you trying to teach me? What am I to learn in this point? And things like that just remind me to stop and slow down. That one about the daughter and the daughter, not him taking her to school, really hits me because I do this thing. My wife takes the kids to school pretty much every morning. I take them every now and then, but there's been a couple times that she's asked me and I've said, I can't, I got this, I got that, I have an appointment, I've got here. And it just smacked me and just reminded me that any minute I could be driving to work and somebody could pull out and hit me. But if I was going in a different direction to take my daughter to school that day, I could have been in a better position. So just challenge yourself to see the different perspective. Perspective is either your power or your prison. And if you find the negative and the bad in everything, you're going to have that kind of attitude and it's going to change the direction of your life. We can't control everything. You have to start focusing on what can I control. You have to figure out what are the controllable factors that are happening right now and what is the difference that I can make with it. What can I control? I lost the deal. Great. What can I control? The buyer's canceling. What can I control? Somebody just cut me off. What can I control in that? Somebody got in an accident right in front of me. What can I control in this situation? We focus so much on the things that we have no control over and we have no power over, and we allow those things to run the rest of our day. I don't know how many times I've run into some of you, and you, at the end of the day, oh my goodness, da, 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 and they go on and on and on about it, and they're so negative, and they're so, it's just one of those things, and it's just dragging it, and you could tell that it's been eating at them all day. You can see it on their face, you can hear it in their breath, you can see it written all over them. But if they took that 1 minute just to stop and breathe and ask themselves a more powerful question, which is, life, what is this trying to teach me? What is the other side to this? Where's the positive side of this? Where's the thing that I can find that's going to teach me a lesson? How can I use this to benefit me? How can I use this in a different light? So just taking these perspectives in these moments just to make a difference. And I just thought it's just a quick reminder. There's a ton going on. There's a lot going on. We're all busy. We're all working. We tend to forget. We tend to forget that, number one, there's another side, our spouse, our family, our lives. Take a break, have a vacation, have some of this downtime. You know, we were just talking the other day about a car. You're like, man, I got put out for a week. But, you know, hey, you know what? He was out for a week because he was working on the car and everything like that. And he goes, every time it was something different, another thing, another. There's like 5 things lined up, and I went through all of them, and I finally got back, and it was one simple little thing. But if I had to bring it somewhere, it would have cost me $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. But I had the knowledge, and I could fix it, and it only cost me about $300. So even though it took him about a week to get through it and piece it all together in his free time, there's a positive side to that, and that's the power right there. Being able to see, hey, it only cost me $300, plus I learned something. So now next time it happens, I know what I got to do. So change your perspective. Your perspective is either your power or your prison. So with that said, that's my message. I'm going to jump in and let's go to. I am going to talk about appraisals a little bit today again, just because even after the last class where we talked about what's going on in some of the market, I've had even more conversations, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But I do want to go into. I want to show you a couple things about 21 Online and some of the tools that you have access to. You heard Greg mention social ad engine yesterday. You've heard us mention that a few times. I just want to show you social ad engine and what you can do with it, because it's not just for listings. It started out being a product, an app that you can use to promote your listings, and it would only work if you had a listing. So if you want to come over here, you have listings available. Create a campaign from a listing or create a campaign from a template. If you click on create a campaign from a template, these are your templates to promote yourself. So you as an agent have these templates that are available for you to use. A trusted agent, expertise making home dreams come true, make home buying easy. These are all pre-done ads. I'll click and I'll show you one. These are social media ads that they are going to take care of posting for you. All you do is create the rest of this ad and make sure that it says what you want. You can change the photos if you don't like the photos. You can change the order of them if you don't like the order of them. You can change the text and the headline here. Choose what you want to do. This one is just going to drive traffic to the web page, so it's not really going to necessarily get leads, but some of the other ones are going to will get leads. So this is reach, traffic, reach, lead gen. So if I want a lead gen one, this is going to give me the ability to generate leads. They're going to click learn more. There's going to be some information they have to put in, and then you can choose, I'm going to spend $129, $229, or $349, and it's going to run for 7 days from the start date. The more money you spend, the more reach it's going to have, and it tells you approximately what your reach is going to be. So recommended, they're just going to do the targeting for you. If you do custom targeting, that might slow things down a bit, because when they have it set up, it's already approved. It's an approved ad. And if you've heard Mike talk about certain ads, the hardest part right now is getting an ad approved through Facebook. So sometimes these ads will take, I've heard people say they've submitted an ad. One of the first ones they've done, 2 weeks later, got denied. They resubmitted. A week later, it got denied. Resubmitted. 2 weeks later, got denied. Resubmitted. 2 weeks later, it got approved. And it took them a month and a half, 2 months to get an ad approved by Facebook. So it's almost like what they say about insurance: deny, 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 and the 10% that stick around will get it approved. So that kind of seems like what they're doing sometimes. So just keep that. So social ad engine has These are lead generation. These will just drive traffic to it, and this is reach. You're just going to get an ad out in front of people. So use this if you're not doing anything and you want to do something. Here's something you can do that's going to take minimal effort and be very easy. Let's not reinvent the wheel if you don't need to. Then the other thing I wanted to show you, come on, is if you have listings, just another tool we have. We have Business Builder. You can create ads through Canva or create posts through Canva for your listings. But if you go to Brand Studio is where they have all of our logos for your Century 21 Beggins Enterprises, Fine Homes and Estates, commercial. They've got all of these logos here. So if you ever need logos, you can go to Brand Studio. But Brand Studio also has marketing. So they've got general templates, which are, give me a second, go through. They're basic templates for different things, whether it's an anniversary. They even have them if you wanted to buy a billboard. They've got templates for billboards. You know, deliver extraordinary years of video, social media posts about, you know, relocation. So they've got a bunch of different ads that you can use here. But if you have listings, you can go to single or multi-property templates, and under these templates, they allow you to. They've got all of these types of advertising. It's just it's a little crisper and cleaner than some of the stuff that's in Business Builder. So you can do flyers, you can do open houses, you can do social media posts, single property social media posts. Here's a carousel of photos that'll go through. So if you want to show multiple ones that kind of carousel through, similar to like a video, you could do that. Here's a single post with a bunch of images. So it's just a bunch of different things that you can use. If you have a listing and you're looking for something to freshen up because you've been using the same things over and over again, go to 21 Online, go to Brand Studio. You can do that, but then you can also go to your multi-properties. So if you have multiple listings, you can choose these and market these. So you've got pictures of a bunch of all of these featured listings. Don't settle. These are some of the listings. Here's some more listings. So if you have multiple things, you can use those. So Brand Studio, 21 Online. For those of you who haven't been in 21 Online in a while, 21 Online has a ton of stuff. Their C21 University is the same way. They've got a ton of classes. They've got a ton of courses, live courses, recorded courses, all kinds of stuff that you can get in with. All right, I'm just going to get out of that. That's the issues. All kinds of things that you can get in with and use for your business. All right, Remine. So one thing I recommended, or you hear us talking about, Craig's talking about a virtual assistant that's calling absentee owners, and he said we got the numbers from Remine. So for those of you who don't know, Remine is a great tool. If you want to, this is all that they're doing to get these absentee owner numbers. This is it. This is all they're doing. You can pick a city, zip code. Let's just say I want to pick Riverview, Florida. So this whole area of Riverview, I want to come here and I want to go absentee owners, absentee in-state or out-of-state, and apply. I've got 3,700 numbers that I can call. Potentially. They don't always have numbers on them, but there's 3,700 properties. But here, you want to see something else? Active, 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 active. This whole first page is all absentee owners that have listed their homes. They're all properties on the market. So if you don't think that they're listing their homes, they're right here. They're listed. And if I want to come here to status, I want off market, expired, withdrawn. Yeah, I don't even care if it's closed or canceled. Those are the ones I want. So there's over 150 properties, absentee owners, that are on the market right now just in Riverview. So because there was 3,700 in some, now there's 3,600 left. When I go through and see the ones there's 160 of them actually have listed. So out of, let's just use that as a baseline, 3,600, and out of that, there's 160. What is that? That's 10% would be 360. So that's about 5% of them have listed. It's a pretty good number. 5%. So if you took the time, what would you do with 150 listings? Ouch. Hmm? Yeah, basically call 100 people, get potentially 5 opportunities based on just the numbers that are there. Call 100 people, talk to 100 people. Now talk to 100 people, potentially have 5 opportunities. So what I said is, let's just take these. I'll show you where they're at. We'll create a cart, and we'll do Riverview. We're going to add these to the cart. There's a lot of them, so it'd take a minute. But so we have a virtual assistant that's calling these numbers. That's all this person does. They sit down, they call, they do it for, I want to say it's probably about 6 to 8 hours a day. So if I go to carts to my Riverview absentee owners, 3,100 of them here, and I want to just go down the list. Here's Riverview absentee owned property, and I want to go to my associated people. And there's some names but no numbers. So if we wanted to get all of this as a list, all you want to do is we're going to export. And when you export, it's going to ask you, we're going to select all of them, export, and this will just put it into a list, name it, absentee owner contact, and then select the columns you want to export. And we're going to get the owner information, and there's going to be associated people contact information, the owner information. So we're going to export those out. And that's it. So you can have the address, you can have the owner information, you'll have all of that there, and you'll have it in a list, and you could just go right down that list calling. Now, let's say you don't want to make 200 calls in a day, like this assistant is making 200 to 300 dials in a day. Say you don't want to do that. Wouldn't it be as much? She's doing let's just make it even number, 250 a day. So in one, let's just make it 200, make it 200 a day. In 1 week, she'll get through 1,000. So in 3 weeks, she'll be through 3,000. In 1 month, she will be through all 3,200 numbers here. In 1 month, they will have called all of them, calling 200 a day. So in 1 month, what if you decided I'm going to make an investment in my business? I'm going to get an assistant, and I'm going to pay someone for 1 month to do nothing but make these calls to 3,000 people that have contact information. If it's there, let's just say 2,000 of them have it. That'd be even sooner. So I'm going to make that investment. So 1 month, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to hire someone. Let's just say it's $10 an hour. They do 8 hours a day. That's $80 a day, 5 days a week, $400 for the week. $400 for the week times 4 weeks in a month is $1,600. Let's just make it $2,000 for the month. You'll see the numbers Craig shows you that we're getting 1 appointment a day, basically, from 200 calls, at least 1 appointment a day, typically. So 1 appointment a day, 5 days a week is 5 times 420. That's in a month. You should have 20 potential appointments. Is 20 potential listing appointments worth spending $2,000 max on someone to make these calls and do that for you? Potentially. Let's just say you don't want to do that. Partner with somebody. Do you think you have one other person that you can split 20 listing appointments, maybe go on it together, provide more value? There's 2 of us. You get 2 for the price of 1. I know everybody else is trying to dumb the commission down and charge you 4%, but you get 2 of us for the price of 1 at 6%. And I could show you how our marketing and strategies is putting more money in sellers' pockets today than we ever have before, to the tune of sometimes $50,000 more, just because of the way that we're marketing, representing our clients and the properties and positioning them on market. So is that worth potentially doing? Because you have just in one city, this is one city. This is not Tampa. This isn't Brandon, Valrico. This isn't, Clearwater. This is just one city. There's 3,000. So it's something that if you're not going to make the calls, you hear Craig say it all the time. If you're not the assistant, if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant. So if you're not going to do it, get somebody to do it for you. You have to start at some point. When you start earning money, you're going to have to spend some money on your business to get to that next level. Sometimes if you're going to put money in, to talk to any top producer, they're spending some type of ad spend on something, whether it's you know, because they have a bunch of listings. Say they're spending $1,000 a month on just listed and just sold postcards that go out, or they're spending money on something else, some other lead source, or a transaction coordinator, or an assistant. They're spending money on something. So if you want to get your business to that next level, you might want to consider doing something like that to get some more opportunities, especially right now when we need listings. And you've heard us talk about absentee owners over and over and over and over again, because this is a great opportunity. You saw 5% of the absentee owned properties in one city are active on the market right now. 5% of them. That's a pretty damn good number. And so I think I would start me reaching out and calling those people, or at least partnering with somebody to do that. So Remind over here in Stellar MLS. What type of training would they need? They would need script training. So they would need a script, and then you would probably want to do some, well, what Jeff and Mike are doing is they are actually going through script role playing with her. So talking about upswings, downswings, objections, and questions and things like that, because that's all they're doing. Their job is to set an appointment. So their job isn't to answer real estate questions. They are not doing real estate activity. They are only a call center making calls. So you want to train them. They need to be trained on the scripts. So going through those scripts, asking those questions. So a lot of these people, they've got experience in making calls, because that's what they do. Yeah, script templates. We would need script templates for them. We do have scripts in Drive and in Megan's Agents. There's scripts all over there. So they would just need something like that to use. But that's something that it's going to take. You're either going to do it or someone else is going to do it. All right, let's get out of that. Come back over here. So just to talk about this, I talked about this last week, but this is really important, because what we've seen. So after last week's class, the whole week we had about 3 or 4 more people that ran into an issue with an appraisal. Nothing huge, but the outcome of it all worked out. But here's what's happening. Buyer comes in. We have auction type settings where buyers are having to pay over appraised value. Buyers are coming in. They love the home. There's no other homes to choose from. They have to be in this neighborhood because their brother, their mom, their cousin, their grandparents live right around the corner, live in the neighborhood. My kid already goes to this school, need to keep her in this school district. I know somebody here. My work is there. They have to be in this area, and there's nothing that comes on the market. Then the perfect home comes on the market, and they're competing with 20 to 30 other offers when it comes in. And they're doing whatever it takes because they have an agent telling them, you're going to have to go above list price. You're going to have to this. If you really want this home, this is what we have to do. But interest rates are still low, so it's still a good decision. And going through these steps with them, they put this offer in, and they're excited because they win the bid, and they're really excited. But then guess what happens? They do an inspection, and the inspection reveals that the home's good, but there's a couple things here, there, whatever. And they're going, not a big deal. I'm glad we got the house, but there's a couple things. I mean, yeah, I'm okay with it. It'll probably cost me $1,000, $1,500. But I'm still overpaying for the home. No, it's okay. I still like it. So I'm good. I'm fine. They go through, they move forward, they get their financing. They're getting stressed out because they're providing all of the documents to their lender. Their lender's telling them that this or this or this, and we need a different letter for that. I need this another way. I need you to give me those statements again because we have them, but we need this. They're getting stressed out. They're getting insurance quotes. The insurance quotes are asking for things that maybe their inspector didn't do or needs to go back for. Then they order the appraisal. The appraiser goes out. The appraisal comes back. Now the appraisal comes in $30,000 light. And that feeling of, well, this is okay. I'm overpaying, but it's $1,000 for some repairs, and they're stressed. And now it comes in 30,000 light, and all of a sudden that's a big light bulb for them. What are we doing? Oh my goodness, what are we doing? Are we really doing this? Is this the right decision? This thing, we're afraid, we're scared. I don't know. We're overpaying. Are we overpaying? Are we overpaying too much? Why didn't the appraiser say that it's worth it? This is the professional. This is the guy that says that it's worth it. I don't want to pay more than the home is actually worth. Well, I'll go over that in a second, Mike. So I don't want to pay more than it's worth, and they're getting freaked out. And even if they have in their contract that it says buyer agrees to pay, in this instance, let's just say it's $30,000 light on the appraisal, buyer agrees to pay up to $20,000 above the appraised value. Even if the seller wants to reduce the price to the 30 to the price that the buyer would have to pay, like 550. Appraisal came in at 520. Buyer agrees to pay 20,000 over. So now we're at 540 is what the buyer says they would pay, but we still need to get an agreement together. The buyer's not obligated to pay it because right now the contract is 550. The terms of the contract have not been met. We need to make some adjustments to it to get there. So if the appraisal came in at 530, the buyer would be obligated to move forward at 550 because they said they're paying 20,000 more. But in this instance, since it came in at 520, the buyer said they will pay 20,000 over the appraised value, but only at the contract price of 550. If it appraises light at 530, they'll pay 550, 20,000 over. In this instance, the buyer doesn't have to move forward because the terms of the contract aren't met, even if the seller wants to reduce it to 540 and make the buyer buy. So the buyer's getting scared. And now the buyer goes, we don't know if we want to do it. We think we're going to cancel. Or I want it at the appraised value. But you said you'd pay over the appraised value. Yeah, at the original contract, but now that one's not really valid anymore because those terms haven't been met. We need a new one. We need a new agreement. That's happening. That happened 3 or 4 times last week where the buyer got a little scared. It all worked out. It all came together and it's like, look, if this is what it takes to get the home, we don't want to miss it, because they started looking. They had a good agent on the other end who said, look, this is what's available. Do you see anything else? No, everything else is 650, 700. That's even close to what you want. This property here, because it's in this area like this, that, and the other, that's what you want, right? There's nothing else available. You're not going to buy a home if we don't buy this one. Interest rates may be going up, down, around. We don't know. So we're already this far into it. This is a good decision. The minute this one closes, the next guy is going to put their home on the market at this price. So you're going to be back in an equitable position. It's a good decision. We got them back around. But these things are happening. So what we need to make sure that we're doing is we are getting large escrow deposits. Like large escrow deposits. $500,000 home, let's try and give at least 50 grand in escrow. Even if they don't have to bring all of it to the table, like let's just say they're doing a 5% down loan. Well, that's 25 grand plus some closing costs, so that's maybe 40 grand. Get as much as you can, get it all in, because they need to have some stake in the game. Because here's the other thing. Buyer agrees to pay. Let's swap this up a little bit. Let's say the buyer agreed to pay 30,000 over the appraised value. The appraiser came in 30,000 light, 550 contract. Appraisal came in at 520. The contract says the buyer will pay the difference between that gap up to $30,000. The terms of the contract have been met because it appraised at 520. Buyers moving forward at 550 because they said they'll pay 30,000 more. Terms of the contract are met. Have we ever seen a buyer or seller decide they want to cancel a contract and they didn't have the right to do it per the contract, meaning they didn't have protections in the contract to do so that would protect their money? Have you ever seen that? Yes, I have. We've seen it plenty of times. So in this instance, when they have $50,000 on the line, how likely are they to walk away from the purchase because now the appraisal came in light, they got scared, we're not making a good decision, I don't know, my dad told me to never overpay for anything, my family always starts off 10% lower and negotiates somewhere in between, why am I spending 10% over, what's going on here, I don't think this is good, plus there's these repairs, we don't even know the neighborhood, we're moving from this city, we've never even been there, I don't even know what the drive to work is going to be like, there's a lot of unknowns. And when you have that type of mentality, $50,000 will hold that deal together. But if you only had $5,000, the buyer, in their mind, I run the risk of losing $5 grand and walking away, or I run the risk of paying $50,000 more and having this home that I have no idea how everything's going to work out because they go to worst case scenario. I have no idea what I don't know how the work's going to be. I don't know what the schools are. I don't know my neighbors. There's already this much in repairs I have to do when I get in there. I could start going through all of the things and I have to pay $50,000 more than the appraised value or $30,000 more than the appraised value. When they start going through all those things, that's where the emotions get involved and that's where these things happen. So having large escrows are going to hold that together. Make sure that we're getting large escrows. Also talked about, again, I think we really should start using this appraisal contingency for sellers in the instance where a buyer says, I will agree to pay up to $10,000 above the appraised value. I still think it's fine to write in the additional terms. I actually think it'd be prudent to do so, to write in buyer agrees to pay up to $10,000 above the appraised value in the additional terms, but check to add an appraisal contingency. And in this section here is where we're going to fill out. This says, this contract is contingent upon buyer obtaining at buyer's expense a written appraisal from a licensed appraiser stating that the appraised value of the property is at least, number here, contract price $550, buyer will agree to pay $10,000 above the appraised value, which means that the buyer says, I'm okay as long as the property appraises at $540 because I'll pay 10 grand more to get to $550. So we put $540 in here. The good thing about using this is it spells out rights, obligations, timeframes to deliver notice, what happens, whose rights are protected, whose are not. Because if you just write in there, buyer agrees to pay $10,000 above the appraised value, when does the appraisal have to be done by? When? And we can't say loan approval time frame because the contract says that even if loan approval has been met or the loan approval date has passed, there's 3 reasons the buyer can still cancel the contract and get their money. One of them is if the appraisal obtained by the buyer's lender does not meet the terms of the loan approval. That's after loan approval. If the appraisal comes in, it says after loan approval, the appraisal is going to be contingent on the loan approval is contingent on an appraisal, but sometimes they will issue a conditional loan approval just waiting on the appraisal. And if you deliver conditional loan approval has been met because you told it, here's our loan approval. And if the appraisal comes in after that, the buyer still has protection because the contract says so. If you just wrote in, buyer agrees to pay $10,000 above the appraised value. But if you use this says that the appraisal will be done on or before, put in a date. Just put in 15 days from the effective date, whatever that date is. 18 days, anywhere 15 to 21 days from the effective date, whatever you want. I would say 15. Why? I've been asking for appraisals to be ordered within the first 3 days. Agreed. And if we have a date here of 15 days, they have to do that to get the appraisal back on time for that 15 days. What are we doing? Number one, we're going to know what's going on with this contract right away. Number two, we're getting the buyer with more stake in the game. We have a buyer who is now under contract, delivered an escrow deposit, performs an inspection, spends $500 on an inspection, spends $550 up to $550 on an appraisal. So they're already basically $1,000 into the contract of money they're not getting back, plus their escrow deposit of say 5 grand, 10 grand they've put up. They've already put out a lot of money. They're attached to this contract. We put that in there and we're going to be processing right away. Now, what happens within that time frame if the appraisal doesn't come back at a term that matches a term of the contract where everything has been met and we need to cancel? It tells us that if the appraisal states the appraised value of the property is less than the above value, buyer delivers a copy of the appraisal with the seller within 3 days of this date. So the appraisal can come back. This is the date the appraisal has to be obtained by. So the appraisal has to be back to the buyer at this day, whatever this day, 15 days, and then they have 3 days to deliver it to the seller. So technically 18 days. That's why I always say just do 15 days. And when they deliver the appraisal to the seller within 3 days, they have to deliver the written notice of terminating the contract and getting their deposit back because the terms of the contract have not been met and they have the right to do that, or removing the contingency and moving forward. That's what, if they don't do it within 3 days, paragraph B, except as provided in 8 paragraph B, except provided, that's from the financing contingency. If they don't do this within 3 days, they're moving forward because it says right here, if the buyer fails to timely obtain an appraisal, meaning they don't get it by this date, or having timely obtained the appraisal fails to deliver notice to the buyer's exercise of right to terminate, the contingency is waived. So this spells out the timelines, the timeframes, when, who, what, why, where, how, all of that. It spells it out and says, This is the date the appraisal has to be back by. This is the date you have to tell me what you're going to do by. And this is the price that it has to appraise at. And the contract says that you, the buyer, will agree to pay up to this amount over the appraised value, which matches this. Holds everything together, puts some rights obligations in place where everybody sees and hears, and it's nice and clear. And it's not, well, there's no date for when the appraisal has to be ordered by. We can put that in there. We can put in the appraisal has to be ordered by this day within 3 days, but then it doesn't say anything about when the buyer has to tell the seller that they're canceling. They could just drag it out the entire time. How much extra does a buyer have to pay to expedite an appraisal? That depends if lenders are actually expediting appraisals right now. A lot of them, I know appraisals for a while would not expedite. So they were not allowing appraisals to be expedited. But if they do, it's probably going to be an additional, I want to say it's between 150 and 300, about the same amount as it is for an appraisal to come back out for a reinspect, between 150 and 300. But I know some of them weren't allowing for expediting because they're so busy, and they're not going to put one other one to a detriment. So I think this is something that we need to consider. If the buyer's waiving the appraisal contingency, definitely don't do this. It is a lot if you have a buyer at a lower price point to have them pay that. But that's, again, if they're buying a home. So we've heard D.R. Horton tell us, when we sit down with our buyer and they come in, if the buyer is not uncomfortable, then we didn't do our job, or they are the right perfect buyer for us. Meaning when they sit down, we're telling them the property's probably not going to appraise. We're going to need 10% up front. If it doesn't appraise and you don't move forward, your 10% is gone. You can't buy anything with this. We don't have any inventory. We don't this, we don't that. You have no rights. You have no protections. You have no anything. And the buyer that goes, okay, great, give it to me. We have the right buyer. We'll take him. If the buyer gets scared and is uneasy and is asking way too many questions and are unsure, you know what? We probably did our job and protected them from a problem in 3 to 6 months, and then having a home fall out. So yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot, but these are the things that we need to be asking for them to do. And if it's our buyer, I understand. A lot of people aren't asking for these things to be done. They're just letting it go because, oh, we got 10 grand over the appraisal. We got 10 grand. Buyer's going to say they'll pay 10 grand over appraisal, and they forget about the other terms, and they don't think about anything else. So I would start using these, and again, it adds protections there. And what was the other thing I was going to talk about? Oh, Mike, you asked a question about how do you challenge an appraisal? So you're gonna have to communicate with the lender. So when the lender gets the appraisal goes to the underwriter reviews the appraisal, and then they release it so that we have the appraisal report available and you can actually review it. And at that point, if you want to challenge the appraisal, you have to provide comps for it, and you probably want to put together a written email and justification or note, a letter of justification for the value, why your value was this, and this, and why the comps that they used were not that, and what the issues were, recent sales, why you used this comp instead of that one. This one's a different school district. This one was a 2000 home built by a completely different builder. This is a 2005 built by a much better builder. This was a starter home that was not. You wouldn't understand that unless you were in the area. You want to do that, and then the lender is the one who submits all of that to challenge the appraisal, and then from there, the appraiser will review, and most of the time come back and tell you, no, I was right. I mean, we don't see it a lot where they make any changes, and if they do, they're usually minimal. So that's something that you got to be aware of. So yeah, why would you use an appraisal contingency in this market? That's why, unless the buyer is agreeing to waive their appraisal protections, and then this contract is not contingent upon an appraisal. The buyer agrees to pay the contract price regardless of the outcome. That's in our clauses. So whenever you need to add that clause, that's already there. All you have to do is copy and paste and put it in. So I don't mean for this to be repetitive from last week, but I just want to continue to expand on this and really hammer this into your brain, because these things are becoming very, very prevalent, and they're happening all the time where buyers are paying over. I've had buyers change line. That's a good point. So yeah, John. So What we can do, what are your options as a buyer? I was just talking to somebody yesterday. As a buyer, when you have an appraisal that comes in short, you either, oh, sorry, Mr. Seller, that's the appraised value. That's what I want it at. That's if there's no other verbiage added. That's the appraised value. That's what I want the price at. Seller says no. Listing agent looks at the appraisal, says there's an issue with it. They put together a report between the two of you, submit it to the lender to challenge the appraisal. The appraisal comes back and they say, no, it's the same thing. That's really it. You typically, I've never seen an instance where a lender will order a second appraisal to try and get it higher. I've seen vice versa, where I had a property that was under contract at $1,050,000, and the appraisal came back at $1,150,000, $100,000 higher, and the lender paid for a second appraisal because they felt the value was too high above, and they wanted to make sure that it was done correctly, and they got a second appraisal that came in at $1,075,000. So typically the lenders will not order a second appraisal because it came in low, because they're going to say, look, one person thinks that's the value. We're going to have to agree with them. That's our money on the line. We're not doing that. So what you can do is you can go to a new lender. So the buyer and the seller would have to be willing to extend some protections, extend some times to get to a new lender. Like I just did, I said, hey, call Mike Wiles over here and have him look at the file and make sure that he feels comfortable with it. He'll take it and say, yep, we look good. Let's put it in. Since everything's basically done, we might be able to do this one in 21 days because he's closed them in 21 days for us before, sometimes a couple days sooner. We just need to order the appraisal right away, and we'll see what that comes back at. My neighbor's appraiser used comps in a different zip code in town with lower values. That's I can't say it's a big no-no, but I mean, typically they stay within the same city. They try and stay within the same neighborhood. They don't jump over major barriers. Like if 75 was split like this and our neighborhood was on one side, they're usually not going to jump over 75 to go grab more homes out of that. So that's very, very odd that would happen, and that would be something that I would assume that an underwriter might be able to review and say, no, we don't agree with that, but I don't know. Yeah, these are opinions. These are people's opinions, and it depends if there's no comps. It depends on the property too. So if there's no comps available anywhere, they have to find some comps. So if there's no comps in the neighborhood, in the city, in the zip code, they've got to go somewhere. They need something to justify value. So they try and go to other areas outside of that and then add value or subtract value because that one's nicer, this one's better, this one wasn't, that was older. So they try and make those changes. So it is very odd. Without seeing the property and knowing any of the circumstances, I couldn't really comment too much on that. So that's that. That's just expanding on that from last week. And with that being said, we're coming up near the end there. I don't want to rant on too much more, but just start using these. Make sure we have some protection. Make sure you have some protection for the buyers and the sellers, and know where the rights and obligations are. Put some time frames attached to the appraisals. Know who has the right to cancel, who doesn't. If you have any questions, reach out to us. And that is all. I hope you guys have a great Wednesday and have a beautiful day. We'll talk to you soon.